Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
8:07 on this Tuesday morning in your nation's capital. It's O'Connor and Company, the 12th day of August, the day after what President Trump considers Liberation Day for the District of Columbia, and certainly for the people who live in D.C. or work in D.C. or visit D.C. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. The response from local politicians, let's be clear, Democrats have had a stranglehold on Washington, D.C. for 50, 60, 70 years. Throughout the entire modern era of home rule, they have controlled everything in this town.
That's right.
And Democrats don't like the Republican president, Donald Trump, calling it like it is. And let me be clear here. It's not like other Republican presidents up until now haven't recognized that there is a serious crime problem in D.C. No. This is a legitimate thing that's been going on for years. In fact, listen to this Republican from 1992.
My staff who lives here in the Hill reminded me, don't stop at a stoplight until I'm out of town. If I see a red light late at night, since there's very little traffic, slow up at the other block so I never come to a full stop except in the middle of the block because of carjackings. Stopping at a light, people standing at a corner, walking up with a gun.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's not a Republican. That's Joe Biden, senator from Delaware in 1992. Maybe that's why he took Amtrak all the time. What he just described of how you handle a red light when you're driving in Washington, D.C. is exactly how I handle red lights today in Washington, D.C. Nothing has changed. It's just gotten worse, Julie.
Yep, it has. It's terrifying for residents. It's terrifying for women. It's terrifying for the Hill staffers that are sent here to work for congressmen elected to represent their districts.
Yeah.
It is a national embarrassment. And instead of apologies, instead of taking any responsibility, the mayor just stands up there and says, it's all an exaggeration.
And so does Eleanor Holmes Norton, the delegate for D.C., not a voting member of Congress, but her job ostensibly is to represent the people who live here, otherwise known as victims of crime. She, by the way, in her social media profile has her name as Eleanor #DC statehood Holmes Norton. Yeah, that ain't happening anytime soon, ma'am.
These people.
After the president seized control of D.C. police, it's a 48-hour window. It's not seizing control. It's fixing a problem. It's overseeing and refocusing what they're doing and their rules of engagement. After the president seized control of D.C. police, an unprecedented action. Yeah, because there's unprecedented crime and mayhem in this town. And deployed the D.C. National Guard without D.C.'s consent. Yeah, last time he asked D.C.'s consent to deploy the National Guard, D.C. said no, and that's what January 6th happened. Senator Chris Van Hollen and I announced we'll introduce our bills to permanently prevent either from happening again. So their focus is not on fixing crime. Their focus is on fighting Trump.
Yes, and protecting this fiefdom, which they've destroyed. This fiefdom is Washington, D.C. They've destroyed it. Again, they've embarrassed our country. Do they think foreign leaders are not watching this? Right. This is complete. I mean, they always seem very concerned about our position on the world stage. Our capital city is in ruins because of these Democrats, and they're there to protect that.
Phil Mendelson, the chair for life of the D.C. Council, says this is a manufactured intrusion on local authority. Violent crime in the district is at the lowest rates we've seen in 30 years. They keep quoting the same fake, phony stat over and over and over again. By the way, Phil Mendelson, when he walks around D.C., he has police protection.
That's right. Yeah, that's a great point, Larry. Don't forget that you're disarmed in this city. Can't even carry mace.
Yeah.
You're completely vulnerable.
Muriel Bowser used the opportunity to petition for statehood. D.C. is unique. While we pay taxes and uphold the responsibilities of citizenship, we're not a state. We don't control the D.C. National Guard. We don't have senators or full autonomy. That's why you've heard me, many other Washingtonians, advocate for D.C. statehood. That's right. They worry about a slogan and about trying to score political points and try to feather the nest of Democrats in the Senate by getting 2 automatic Democrat seats in that body.
That's right.
Rather than focusing on keeping the streets safe, rather than keeping neighborhoods safe, rather than protecting children and young families. It's absolutely nauseating to see.
They also forget it's in the Constitution. The framers saw this. They understood that the capital city should not be controlled by one party or the other. So then the Democrats could publish the Republicans, or Republicans could punish the Democrats on Capitol grounds. They saw that they had to have this sort of free area, and yet the Democrats have still managed to ruin it.
And by the way, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears of Virginia actually voiced support for this, said D.C. crime doesn't stop at the Potomac. It rides our metro, invades our neighborhoods, and puts families in harm's way. Thank you, President Trump, for having the backbone to make our capital safe again. I'm sure Abigail Spanberger, of course, opposes this.
Oh,
but I don't know.
Statehood, yeah.
She's such a non-entity that you barely hear her utterances right now. But listen, if the last thing Abigail Spanberger wants is for this next election to be about crime in Northern Virginia, because it's become untenable there as well. Part of it is because of D.C. Part of it is because the same Democrat policies that have poisoned D.C. have fed over and bled over across the Potomac. You see it every day in Alexandria with your elected officials.
Yes, and again, it is enormously frustrating to see Muriel Bowser and the other Democrats that sort of like the Northern Virginia reps here, who are constantly pushing for statehood, and ignore the significant problems in the city and the surrounding areas. It's just maddening.
Can we just? It's amazing to me, all of the gaslighting and all of the lies and all of the, cries of totalitarianism and authoritarianism, and it's all framed within the context of crimes. It's better than it's been in decades here. Everything's wonderful. Can we just take it back literally 2 years ago, Julie? It was just 2 years ago when this same Phil Mendelson and his district council drafted a brand new crime bill for Washington, D.C., a whole new criminal code, how the police and how the district attorney is to handle violent criminals. It was so bad that even Muriel Bowser vetoed it.
That's right.
They overrode her veto. It was outrageous. And the Democrat-controlled House, Democrat-controlled Senate, and the Democrat president vetoed it. Okay? So I'm sorry. It was only 2 years ago. Excuse me, I misspoke. It was a Republican-controlled House, but a Democrat-controlled Senate and a Democrat president that used their federal constitutional authority to override the district council's crime bill. It just happened 2 years ago, and now all of those people are pretending like things are better than they've ever been.
And they're pushing for statehood.
Yes, they're using this. It's like when Hamas slaughtered thousands on October 7th and the next day. See, this is why Hamas needs their own state. This is why we need a Palestinian state so that we don't murder more people. There you go. Okay, maybe that's a stretch in the comparison.
I'll go. I like it. Go with it.
It's the same players. It's the same politicians. 8:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Now, you heard me explain to you that Chris Van Hollen, the Maryland senator, joined with Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton. But if I need to hear one more news agency refer to her as Representative
I know.
Eleanor Holmes Norton or Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, she is a non-voting delegate. She's an ornament. She's a
ornament.
She is. She's an ornament.
It really is perfect.
Don't you know who I am? Yeah, we do. Chris Van Hollen, the senator from Maryland, joined Eleanor Holmes Norton to try to rewrite the home rule provision. By the way, typical of both Eleanor Holmes Norton and Chris Van Hollen, it's a fruitless display that will go nowhere and do nothing. which is actually what the job description is for Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton.
I just miss the days when Chris Van Hollen was focused on the Maryland dad. Can we go back to that?
Funny you should say that. While he's joining with her, he's losing sight of something that happened in his state of Maryland. That would be the murder of Rachel Morin. You remember, he's very sympathetic to the MS-13 gang members who come into the country and stay illegally and wreak havoc on the good citizens and taxpayers and residents of his state of Maryland. But he never found time to reach out and have a conversation with the family of Rachel Morin, who was raped and murdered by one of those illegal alien gang members. Well, we've had a sentencing now, finally, in the murderer of Ms. Morin. He has been given life in prison without parole for this crime. It's, I guess, justice at this point. It's the best that Maryland has to offer when it comes to justice, but nothing will bring back this mother of five. Or the horror and, frankly, daily torture that the family has to go through knowing what their mother went through.
It's absolutely sickening. It's so sad.
Secretary of Homeland Security Christine Noem actually has had an ongoing relationship with Patty Morin, who has become now an advocate for victims of crime at the hands of illegal immigrants. They exchanged words yesterday on social media about this issue. Wes Moore, governor of Maryland, this crime took place on his watch in his state as he tried to somehow run for re-election and then salvage what's left of Maryland into the rationale for a presidential run. Wes Moore wants to be president, and it has nothing to do with his governance of this state, I assure you. It has to do with everything wrong with American politics in the Democratic Party, identity politics, checking boxes, DEI, smiley faces, nothing having to do with actually helping the people of Maryland. Wes Moore went on a rampage rhetorically yesterday against Donald Trump and President Trump's completely legal and constitutional use of federal law enforcement to try to make the city of D.C. safe. While he was going on that rampage, he had nothing to say about Rachel Morin's family. And, by the way, even doubling down on that, Wes Moore continues to push for policies that will make it legal and safe and completely hospitable and welcome for more murderers to live in Maryland under the radar, illegally, without any actual oversight or any sort of law enforcement. He still refuses to allow local and state law enforcement to cooperate with ICE and condemns the one sheriff in the one county that robustly works with ICE on a regular basis to get the criminal element out.
I don't know what it is with the politicians that circle the nation's capital, but boy, we've got some real winners. Don Beyer, this is the Daily Caller, reporting that during a recent detention facility tour, Democrat Representative Don Beyer, my representative, personally requested to meet with several illegal migrant detainees with heinous criminal rap sheets, including trying to kidnap a child. Yeah, probably called in the margaritas too. Let's
wants
have
to meet
a drink
with them
and
because they're being detained.
Yeah,
and they're kidnappers, and they're do they want to? Has Don Beyer ever wanted to talk to you about your neighborhood and keeping your neighborhood
or
safe,
the schools, or
schools,
the murders in Alexandria and Arlington, or the rapes, or the constant crime? No, he's not interested in that. He wants to talk to these illegal immigrants who've been detained, who again have heinous criminal rap sheets. That's who Don Beyer's interested in, and taking your stove.
Victor. You're gasping.
Never gonna let that go, Larry.
Victor Martinez Hernandez, guilty of first-degree murder, first-degree rape, third-degree sex offense, and kidnapping, faced Harford County Circuit Court Judge Yolanda Curtin yesterday, and the judge looked this unrepentant murderer in the eyes and said, "You are not a candidate for rehabilitation. There is simply no hope to rehabilitate you. You took a life that was not yours to take. Your acts not only brutalized a young woman, but also terrorized a community. The Monpa Trail is a place of beauty. Your acts turned that into a place of terror." That's about right, Judge. I'm glad when one judge gets it right now and again, especially in the state of Maryland. And just understand something. When asked about this issue with regard to the criminal illegal immigrant element in our neighborhoods, Westmore, Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, they stand not with the judge and those words. They stand with the criminals. It's 8:23.
Coming up, we're going to talk to Chuck Thies. He's a political analyst, and he's going to talk to us about Trump's D.C. crime crackdown. Keep it here. It's 8:30.
WMAL-FM Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
Mayor Muriel Bowser finds it unsettling that the President of the United States, the head of the executive branch, actually cares about crime in Washington, D.C. enough to mobilize interaction between federal law enforcement and the D.C. Metro Police to actually make the streets safer. It's not like crime is a new problem in D.C. It's just that, President Trump actually cares. He actually has said, I don't like this. Let's do something about it, where sadly both Democrat and Republican presidents who have also seen crime rise has sort of shrugged and said, let D.C. deal with it. D.C.'s their own problem. Well, actually, also President Trump has actually seen the last 5, 6, 7 years where it's been unprecedented, the increase in violent crime, despite the lie that you keep hearing everywhere that it's hit a 30-year low. Julie Gunlock, we are happy to bring in D.C. political analyst Chuck Thies to talk about this and break through some of the lies, the rhetoric, the statistics. Chuck, thanks for joining us. What did you make of Muriel Bowser sort of doing an eye roll here? But what you didn't hear from her was to say, nope, we don't want the help. And actually, I think that she's probably secretly happy to have some reinforcements on the streets.
Well, I think there's a lot of things about which she's secretly happy when it comes to her relationship with the president and some of the actions that he's taken, because she hasn't been secret about her frustration, if not contempt, for the actions and the legislation of the D.C. Council, which, of course, her veto is useless over because it takes 9 votes to override it, and there are left-wing radicals on that body.
You know, she was interviewed, I believe it was over the weekend, where she sort of discounted, I believe it was for ABC, I'm not sure, but they said this was a race thing, that Trump getting involved here, this had racial overtones, and she sort of downplayed that. She said, look, I've worked with this administration, and I don't think it is racially motivated. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it seems like someone got to her in the last couple days, and I agree with you that, you know, she's trying to sound somewhat rational here, but it does sound like she's being more critical of Trump than she's been in the last couple days. Do you think she's nervous politically about her position here, or just having trouble navigating this?
I think it's a combination of all of those things. What's happening here is she used to have supreme authority over district governance, everything, the police, public works, schools, you name it. And now some of that authority has been taken away from her. So I think that rattles her a bit, if not substantially. And I believe she's trying to sort of walk the fine line between not wanting to poke her finger in the president's eye, but at the same time understanding that there are a good number of district residents who aren't in support of this, or at least they're not in support of the manner by which public safety will be improved. This is what I've said many, many, many times. If I'm on the operating table and I need a heart transplant, I don't ask the surgeon what political affiliation they have. I don't care. I just want a new heart, and I want. Yeah. And so, if you live in a crime-ravaged neighborhood and the local Democratic-controlled government can't solve your problem, I don't think you care that it's a Republican or Donald Trump. I think you just want the crime problem solved.
Yeah.
Well, And if you're Ronald Reagan, of course, you do ensure that, as you say, I hope you're all Republicans when he was about to go into the mic. There was that moment for him. Yeah. But you're right. You're 100% right, Chuck. Chuck, what do you make of the fight over statistics that we've been witnessing here? It's been a pretty remarkable circumstance here where everybody says, oh, no, there's no crime problem. That's a 30-year low, 30-year low, 30-year low. You've dove into some of these numbers, especially the homicide rate.
Yeah, it's not a 30-year low. It's not even close. The simplest way to view this is comparison of the last 4 years, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024, to the 10 years prior, 2011 through 2014. 2011 through 2014, the district averaged about 100 murders per year. 2021 through 2024, that average was 200. I'm using round numbers to make it simple, but those are accurate. So when people say we're at a 30-year low, it's just a lie. In fact, the murder rate is doubled right now. That's just the truth. In addition, as we know, at least one high-ranking D.C. police official has been suspended and is being investigated for cooking the books, for altering statistics. In fact, yesterday the president turned to the attorney general and said, hey, you're going to investigate that, aren't you? And she nodded. So this is a serious issue. It's not difficult to cook the books in many, many, many ways. What this individual is accused of doing is literally going into the computer system and changing the numbers. But there are other ways, for example, before the numbers ever get into the computer, to change them.
Charles Allen, of course, famously wanted to decriminalize public defecation. I guess, I mean, whatever Charles Allen is into, I don't want to get into it, but he wants to change the laws so that what any Western civilization would consider to be a crime will no longer be a crime, and their crime problem fixed. Don't call it a crime anymore, and everything's fine. Imagine if Washington, D.C. had an ordinance where adultery was a crime. This would be the highest crime district on the planet, right? But since it's not against the law, then I guess everything's okay. So here's my question for you. Will there be a politician in this town, an elected official, a member of the district council? Chuck, you know these people. You've worked with these people. You work for some of them as an advisor at times, I'm sure, or as an analyst. Will one of them recognize the political benefit, the advantage to standing up and saying, President Trump has a point, and we need to look past partisan political obstacles and fix this problem? The Democrat who does that in D.C. will be the next mayor.
In so many words, yes. But they won't say Trump is right or I support Trump, because in a city where 94% of the people didn't vote for Donald Trump, that's like touching the third rail. But they will say it in so many words. In fact, yesterday on CNN, Ward 2 Council member Brooke Pinto basically said, I prefer that we do this ourselves and not have the White House do it. And I've been trying to do it, but I've been met with resistance. I've made some progress. We've changed some laws, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. So in so many words, people will say, I'm glad Trump is doing this, but they will never say, I'm glad Trump is doing this. And that person absolutely will.
They're all
we welcome the
assistance.
They're
all secretly thrilled they're not going to get carjacked tomorrow. Seriously.
Oh, absolutely. And, hey, I'm glad you mentioned Charles Allen, because he is not solely responsible for the crime problem in D.C. and for the political blowback of the crime problem in D.C., but he is largely responsible for it, and voters on Capitol Hill need to pay attention. Remember, he was almost recalled. He was almost recalled just 2 years ago. He is the problem, or at least if he is taken out, other members will pay attention and say, aha, that's what happens to people who are soft on crime, ignore victims, and pass legislation that hamstrings police.
All right, we'll keep an eye on it. Chuck, thank you. Hopefully you're going to be a guest on a lot of different news programs all day today, because now red carpet ain't rolling out for you, Chuck? Come on.
Oh, no, I've been pretty busy. The phone's been ringing.
Good. Because
Good.
seriously, because I mean, if there's one thing that is a huge benefit, listen, I'm skeptical as to whether this will make a difference. I'm glad that the president is trying to do something. I think that ultimately we got to change the leadership in Washington to actually fix the problem in the district. That is not in Washington on a federal level. But if anything, he's drawn attention to this problem. Everyone's talking about it. Finally.
I'm not skeptical that it will make a difference. In fact, I believe it already has. On Saturday and Sunday night, about 250 various federal agents, Park Police, FBI, Secret Service were deployed around the city. And some of them went to areas where it's a hotbed of crime. And these are areas where I've worked politically. And I got calls from people. They said, the National Guard's been deployed. I didn't think the National Guard was deployed. And they were confusing these agents from a National Guard because they were wearing khaki, what do you call it? Tactical gear. Now, here's my point. Exactly, tactical gear. But here's my point. At the same time, social media occupied by people who commit street crimes and brag about it on social media basically was like, hey, WTF, what's going on here? Maybe we should stay home tonight and talk to any cop. Saturday and Sunday night were unusually quiet. So it is having an impact, and I believe it will have a lasting impact, in particular because we know that if you go out and you arrest people for street crimes, you often find people with outstanding warrants or people involved in more serious crimes or people with knowledge of more serious crimes, and that leads to arresting the bad guys.
Well, listen, I'm usually the cynic here, so I will take your optimism, and I appreciate it, Chuck. It is 8:47. That's a wrap, Julie. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Be safe getting home, by the way. Chris, did you dodge any carjackers on your way in today?
I keep my eyes peeled. I always keep my eyes peeled. No doubt about it. You know, you might want to put like Barack Obama bumper stickers on your car and Hillary Clinton bumper stickers on your car. Might reduce the likelihood of your being carjacked or having your windows smashed. I was listening to Chuck.
Only if Al Hunt is the perp, but sure.
Chuck was great. I was listening to Chuck. He was great. Yeah. You know, President Trump wants to fight crime in our nation's capital. So the Democrat response is what, Larry? It's to fight Trump.
That's right.
You want to fight
Trump's
crime? We're going to fight you. They're fighting for crime. The Democrat Party at the highest levels in Washington, D.C., fighting for more crime. If you're anti-crime, the Democrats are anti-you.